Yo,
Hi.
Good evening, good afternoon.
good evening.
Hello.
How's everybody?
Good.
Good,
Good?
thanks. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
All good.
Um, nice one. Thanks for joining us, people. We've got from Berlin joining in at Davenport or inland. Good to have you on, man. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the invitation, Joachim. Pretty well, actually. I mean, it's Wednesday already. That's quite a good thing. Mondays are not so great, but Wednesdays are okay, I would say.
What's wrong with Mondays?
It's just like, I don't know. It's just the eternal Monday blues, especially when it's like grey winter outside in Berlin.
Oh
And
yeah,
but no, it's good. Monday's like back to work, back to the studio, so that's a good thing.
nice one. Start of the week, start fresh again.
Yeah,
Nice
exactly.
one.
Yeah.
So let me introduce the other guests before we go into the chat. We've got from Paraguay joining us, Victoria Mussi. Hello, Victoria. How are you?
Hi, Joachim. Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you
Good.
on.
All good. Yes.
You said it was really hot. What's the temperature over there?
Oh, I'm not sure. It's like at least 35 degrees Celsius or
Oh
more.
my God.
Yeah.
I
Nice.
wish I could swap. You know, it's freezing here. It's crazy. It's so
Oh, I
cold.
wish I could be there. God, we
Well,
enjoy that weather so much. We don't have that here like all year.
well, I mean, after a few months of darkness and cold over here, I could definitely use some nice summer weather again.
You're
But
welcome anytime, whenever we can travel again.
Just
yeah,
just just hop over, man. Just
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. If it was that easy, especially now, yeah. But anyway, good to have you on, and let's get on to P. Lopez. Ariel, how are you, man? Nice to see you. I hope Ariel can hear us.
Hello.
Hey, there he is. Yeah,
little
Nice to
delay
meet you,
on
man.
Ariel's.
yeah. Good to have you,
Yeah,
man.
thanks. I'm good. I'm like that.
Yeah, I think we should say to everybody who's watching that Ariel is joining us from his phone, and before we went on, there were some connection issues, but he's loud and clear and understandable right now. So we just decided we go for it and see how it goes. But right now it's okay. So good to have you, man. How are you?
Thank you.
There's a bit of a delay, but
Yeah, there's a mega delay.
we'll work with it. We'll work with it. I mean, I love delays, so Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's like going under the Atlantic.
yeah, the signal is traveling a long way. So because Ariel's also joining us from Paraguay, so we'll see how it goes. But
Yeah.
anyway,
But
good to have you
it's
all.
really
Good
bad.
to. It's fine. So Ed, you say your studio week starts at Monday morning, and do you have a tight schedule like that? Is that how you usually split up the days in your week? You go to the studio on Monday, and then what happens next? What's your
Yeah.
routine? What's your routine?
So I share this space with Patrick Skook, and because we both have kids now, our schedule is a bit more, yeah, rigorous or like strict than it used to be for sure. So we alternate like mornings and afternoons most days, and then generally figure it out by like texting each other frantically, like, "Oh, was it my turn this morning? I can't remember." And then so yeah, I mean, but it's also a bit like the office. So it's just kind of where I go to work, whether it's on music or on anything else, writing emails or label work. So yeah, and it's nice. I love being here. As I said earlier to you guys, we've been here for almost 10 years now, and I think ever since we signed the lease on the contract and installed we had to build the walls. We built like a room in room. It just changed things. Like it made going to work to make music like actually like a job, you know, and that's cool. I like that.
That's cool. Yeah. So how do you manage to split up the time between yourself and Patrick? Like you said, you were texting all the time, but what if you are really inspired and the studio is taken? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's tricky. Well, we've learned our rhythms over the years. So I'm like an early mornings guy, and I think now that Patrick has a young child, he will be as well, sooner or later. But so I'm like the guy who maybe gets in at 9:30 and just like when I get in the mornings, I like to just open up whatever I was working on the day before and just work for an hour without looking at my phone or anything like that, or maybe just jam and record something, and then it's after an hour it goes like super fast, and then an hour's gone, and then maybe I then do some kind of real work for a bit. But yeah, and also late at night, it's always there. That's the cool thing. It works pretty well with two people. I think it's good. If it was any more, then it wouldn't work, I think. But and then, you know, for ideas in the middle of the night, there's the laptop, which has always been my kind of trusty secondary way of making music. Like whether you're on a train or if you wake up at 3 a.m. at home and suddenly have an idea, then you can like quickly get it down maybe on Ableton and then bring it to the studio. That's sort of how we both work, I think.
Yeah. So you both have your own personal computers, or do you have a shared studio machine as well?
Yeah, we've tried different things, but at the moment we have Patrick has a PC running Bitwig at the moment, I think, and formerly Cubase. He's really good with Cubase, and I have a Mac with Ableton and formerly Reason a lot. So yeah, we're on different systems. We have different screens. It's a little bit like chaotic, but we found a way to make it work actually over the years. I really like it because he's always showing me tips. He's the master at mixing, I think, or one of them.
Right. So I guess you have somebody to have to give you feedback and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's fun. It's really, really useful. I mean, that's also why I love being in contact with guys like Victoria and Ariel, because as we've got to know each other a bit, we're like sending each other music back and forth. And if you have someone you can trust like that, then you're golden, really, because you can, I don't know, I can never trust my own decisions, or like I can't tell if something's good or not, so I have to send it to a bunch of people first, and then if some of them say like, yeah, it's good, then I'm happy about it and then I can keep going. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but
yeah. Victoria, how long have you been exchanging music like that to give each other feedback and stuff like that?
Yeah, we all work the same way. Like,
I'm gonna wait until he's back.
Well, at least he's frozen with a nice smile on his face.
yeah.
Let's try and see if he can finish that. Okay, so I can tell you, I didn't want to interrupt him, but you know.
I think it's safe.
Okay. I don't know. It's been years actually since we met with Ariel, and we're always giving each other feedback. And with Ed, it has been so wonderful to have the chance for us to work with someone like him as well, because, you know, he takes his time. He's very delicate in giving the feedback, and that's always very, I think, important for your own growth also, because sometimes making music can be very like visceral or self-conscious, so your criteria is, you know, is not always like the sharpest on everything, so I think it's important, of course.
Yeah, totally. It's just nice to have that. Like, of course, now we can't play music in clubs, so how are you going to gauge anyone's reaction? Like, if you're working on techno, you want to like let people hear it a bit, and maybe because I would always try stuff out in sets and have that instant then like feedback, or you could gauge it if it was kind of sounding good or not. So it's really nice to send it to people. I think I always send my tracks or things, anything I'm working on, I send to like 5 or 6 friends immediately. Like as soon as I get home and put it on my laptop, and they're all like, "Oh no, another message from Ed." Like,
I mean,
but
it's a different process. Like sometimes Ariel shows me his music in the studio, and he's like, "Hey, look what I got. This is new." And then sometimes we're playing back to back, and like right there, he's like, "Hey, let's try this on. I just finished this yesterday." So for me, having the experience to listen to it for the first time and like seeing and feeling the people's reactions for the first time is always like, it's super fun, and it's an interesting way of of feeling something that someone is sharing with you. So
definitely.
What is more important to you, the reaction of a crowd or the advice of a good friend you trust with your music?
uh, more, I think both are very important. It depends on what kind of feedback you're looking for what purpose in the process of the creation, I think, because I think both are valid, and because you should consider both.
Yeah, but yeah, if you play it out to people, the only thing you get is like the pure um, intuitive reaction. How does it make people feel on a dance floor or in a club or
Yeah,
and of course they experience it in a very different way because it's blown up to incredible proportions, in terms of sound. And if you just play a track, you send somebody an MP3 to get like a feedback from a friend or something, they listen to it more analytically, I guess, and not so primal, like
definitely.
as a dancing experience. So they're basically two completely different ways to kind of gauge what the track is about. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
you're right.
It's maybe good to have both. Like, I mean, of course, we can't try them out in clubs at the moment, but that was always, it's like 50%, isn't it? And then the other 50% is maybe, well, part of it is your own opinion about the music you've made, and then definitely for me, asking some friends who I trust for those little final tips, like the hats are too loud, or this kind of thing. It's like, yeah, of course, it's all valid. But then I suppose over the years, you would hope that you kind of trust yourself a bit more, finally, or you maybe you make decisions quicker, don't you, about how to like make something sound good in a club, and you can kind of be a bit more confident about how it's going to sound. I remember when I first started producing, and I would try to play stuff out, and it would just sound terrible, or like the difference between a record and then this track from Reason would just sound so, such a stark contrast. But,
true, but you were competing with tracks that have already been mastered and
Yeah.
made ready for a club sound basically. So there's really no way you can find out whether your track is sounding good if you just play your untreated demo in the middle of a DJ set. That's just that's
Yeah.
always going to be disappointing.
Yeah, definitely. And then over the years, I guess you can like learn how to do some kind of test masters for yourself, so that you can get it to a level where you feel happy about it. Hey.
Lady Starlight is asking Ed if that's an Aldi shirt.
It's Acid Aldi.
Oh, right. Nice one.
It's my favorite T-shirt. A friend of mine, Rasmus Bell, made it for me. I mean, he makes some clothes, and when I saw that he'd made that, I had to have it.
So
But,
people dropping in. I should say that even though we very often don't get around to answering any questions, please do post them, because if they are matching whatever we are talking about, or can be part of the conversation, we do like to involve you, and the people who are watching can can ask us anything music related, I guess. So yeah, please do. Please post your comments, and we'll try to get to them if we can. But don't be pissed off if we don't get to them. We'll do our best. We'll do our best. So Victoria, you are in your studio at the moment?
Yes, I'm
Cool.
here right now.
Can you tell us a bit about your studio? What's your process? Do you work with a computer? Do you have hardware? What's your system?
I work mostly with the computer because I don't have a lot of gear.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Juno 106. This is an Akai MIDI controller. I have Yamaha MX200 mixer and Yamaha SH8 headphones. So that's pretty much it. And then sometimes when I need, when I know I need some sounds from certain gear, I go to a friend's house and record stuff, and then try to use it and bring it here and for the creative process.
Cool. So what do you usually do? You start with recording hardware, or are you sometimes also starting a track straight in the box and maybe bring in hardware if you need it or something?
I mean, for example, if I'm at someone's place and we're jamming with stuff, and then we just record whatever happened with the hardware, I just bring it and have it like in a library and see when I can use it to complement stuff that I already have or new stuff, because sometimes that helps me come up with new ideas. And if not, I'll just start working with the computer. And then what I figured is, like, before, when I started, I thought that not having stuff would be like limiting, but I think it helps a lot to try to do the most that you can with the little stuff that you have. So if you just have the computer, what's the extent where you can get with all that you have there? And then when you need to bring something external, you do it. So I think that's a good way to grow, because then whenever you're gonna bring something, you know exactly what you're needing. It's not that you have so much stuff that you don't even know where to start.
Yeah, it's a really valid point. I think this is something that comes up in most of these conversations. People who have lots of gear are frantically looking for ways to come up with rules to limit themselves, because otherwise they'll just get lost in the endless amount of possibilities. And so people with smaller setups, they usually really maximize the potential a lot more, because there's just less to work with, so you have to push it harder to get the results you want. So this is a common thing.
Yes, I mean, let's see, for us, where we are, it's not that you can just go to a shop and get a piece of gear. It's a process, and now that it's traveling is not very easy, you cannot just bring stuff that easily. So I think, of course, I would love to have so many things that I don't have yet in my studio, but it's not my situation now. So this is why I share the way I do it. I'm not saying that it's the best way or the ideal way. It's the way that works for me with the stuff I have.
It allows you to carry on being creative, right? Like, you don't want to get to the point where you're not really being able to make music at all. I think that's another thing. Like, the ideas have to somehow keep flowing. It's like I was saying, if you're making a track on a train on your laptop and headphones, I think it can be equally, if not sometimes more impressive than just jamming for hours endlessly in the studio and you don't get anything from it. So,
on the other hand, I mean, you all have a computer, and computers these days are just insanely powerful. Even just any standard DAW without any foreign plugins or anything else connected to it is just amazing. There's so much you can do. It's like a complete studio in a small box. So I mean, in theory, you don't need hardware. It's basically the whole process and the interaction you have with machines that is making the process sometimes easier and more fun. But to get to a result it's not a necessity, you know. So
Yes,
Totally.
I think it just it makes the experience different just because it makes it more physical.
yeah,
So I don't think it's better or worse. It's just a different experience, but the creativity is always there. So you're right by saying sometimes we say I just work with a computer, but I mean the computer is.
it's a
I mean you
studio.
can do
It's
It's
a studio.
yes,
everything.
exactly
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah. What about you, Ariel? What is your process? I heard you talking about MPC, an MPC before. Let's wait for the signal to
Mm-hmm.
reach.
Uh, yeah, it's kind of glitchy, but I mostly use the computer, but always those old samplers to get like, I don't know, like deepness on the sound, and also a bit. But the computer makes it all for me always.
Yeah, so you have some hardware and you end up recording everything inside the computer then.
Yeah, and the computer is like it's going now through the hardware, and the hardware is coming in computer, and like everything works together. And sometimes I just make like libraries to work. I don't know, on the bed with headphones, like just like sync lines and shit. No, actually, no making a track every time to make tracks later.
That's cool. That's a great way to do it.
Yeah, maybe it's a good idea to have if Ariel is still on his choppy connection to just have him have ask him one question and you just talk about the whole process, so we don't have to interrupt you because the delay is making everything a bit weird. What I'm really interested in is um, how do you arrive from an idea to a track? Is it something you have a structured, fixed routine for, or can you get to the end point in several different ways? Can you describe your process, maybe?
I can get to the same point in different ways, always. Like, but it's never start on the same wave. Sometimes I a sound and the sound like says what I have to do. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it
He's
makes it a bit
he's a
hard to.
Super
very
delay, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I wish the delay wasn't there because I've got so many questions for you, but it's fine. You know, we'll get there. Um,
For me, it's
yeah,
like
so,
really glitchy, guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Same
I
Sorry,
can
here.
I
man.
I can try to help you answer some questions and then you nod.
Yeah. Let's try that. Yeah.
I think
Um,
what he's trying to say is he's very intuitive. Like
right.
not every time is exactly the same. I'm sorry I'm answering for you, but he's very disciplined in the sense that every day is music making day for him. But he can start with different sometimes with hardware, sometimes with a computer, but he's gonna get to a point where that boosts the creative process along the way.
Mm.
You can nod if I'm right or not.
Yeah, and maybe I can.
Or show your thumb.
Yeah, I would jump in and say because I've been, well, Ariel's been sending over tracks for the last maybe 3 years or 2 or 3 years, and it's just amazing how much music he makes, and I'm sometimes amazed like within a week he'll send me like 10 new tracks or something like that, and they're very involved. Like it's not just okay, some of them are quite loopy and quite straightforward in the arrangement, but others are very arranged, and there's like a real. He comes from, or I guess he really loves hip hop, I think, and I would love to hear more about that from Ariel. So it's frustrating with the delay, but it is what it is. But he's a prolific producer. He keeps on sending stuff. It's crazy. Like in I think I have Probably
I
more than
I
100
started
tracks.
making beats.
Go on, Ariel. Tell
Yeah, I
us.
gotta tell
Tell
you
us.
some new shit.
Yeah, man.
Okay, Freak G is calling you a music making machine. So
uh,
I guess
I
I
started making
guess
hip hop when I was 15. I started when I was 15. I'm 38 now, and I still making hip hop. Like I really love hip hop. It's like I don't know. It's just I think every stuff I made, like house or techno, you have something from hip hop, like always in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear it for sure.
Uh,
so. So what's important for you, since you like all these different styles? Is there something
Damn,
you think
for me, I think
have?
connection is really bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Okay. Well, you know what? We'll just carry on, and whenever the connection gets better, you can just jump in whenever you feel it's better. Um, in the meantime, I was fascinated by the
Yeah,
oh
or, or I think we can try it in another time.
yeah,
I just
just
moved
stick around.
to a new place and I got no internet, so I'm with my phone and it's really shit.
Yeah,
Sorry, guys.
it's okay. It's
no
okay. We'll
problem,
we'll
man.
get you on another time to. Oh, you're going?
Stick around, man.
Yeah,
Stick
just
around,
stick around.
Ariel.
Just stick around.
Nod.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
shame.
yeah, it's a shame. Anyway, let's carry on and make the best of
Okay.
it. Um, cool.
Sorry.
So it's okay, man. um, Ed, are you using the piano that's behind you?
Well, I can't really play it properly. I mean, I always try, and it's really out of tune. But it does serve a purpose because like I inherited it from a guy that I took over his flat, and he left the piano there. And I always thought it was really beautiful and was really excited about it, but it's super out of tune. So first of all, I borrowed a tuning device and tried to tune it a little bit by ear. So now it's kind of roughly in tune, and yeah, definitely use it for one-off notes and effects. If you like, I opened it up so you can access the strings, and if you run your fingers across the strings and this kind of thing, you can create all kinds of amazing long effects and reverb stuff. So, and I actually dream about making it into like a plate reverb or a spring reverb,
Oh
something
yeah,
like that. That's the next step.
yeah.
Slowly like wiring everything up to that side of the room, and yeah, I love it though. I'm pretty fascinated with people who can really play piano properly because I wish I'd learnt it properly.
Well, yeah, I'm using it as an effect box, like running a speaker into it, or use the acoustics of the box, or have something play against the strings. You can get like really interesting
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
totally. Yeah, it's cool if it's really out of tune and really discordant. You can attach um, different things to the strings, like crocodile clips and that kind of thing. I mean, next door to me are two other musicians who use piano a lot, and they have like full-on prepared pianos and really know how to use that, and it's really impressive. So, kind of inspired me. I just decided to move it from our old flat when we moved out, which was a bit of a mission because we used to live on the fifth floor with no elevator. But it was worth it. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, can you describe your process, because your music is quite there's often melodic elements to it and stuff like that.
Mm.
Do you come up with melodies in your head, or do you find them by using sequencers? What's
Mm.
your way?
Yeah, I think generally they come from my head and just from playing things like playing simple riffs on a keyboard over and over, or maybe playing with a filter at the same time so that it like creates some kind of sing-song effect. I generally record a lot of audio and then just maybe in the end just take like one loop or a short section. But there are times when I'll rehearse like a pass using one synth and then really record like the whole track on that one sound, or that one synth or one instrument. But yeah, I do like melodies and kind of like I would say more like harmonic elements within techno and within electronic music. I really like a lot of music from other producers that's super dark and super, like, I want to say cold, but I always end up adding some kind of melodic element on top. So I never get there with the colder stuff or with the like really minimalist. I wish I could, but maybe that's something to aim for.
Right.
And but yeah, as I said, my process is pretty much like just recording long passes of audio and working with that. I don't tend to use a lot of samples in the box anymore. Maybe one or two. There are some things I feel drawn to, like a really good, sharp, nicely recorded hi-hat is always kind of like a useful thing to be able to drop in quickly rather than set it up on a drum machine. But it's like one of the things when I was saying I used to do a lot of stuff on trains and planes on my laptop, I would generally always swap out the hi-hats then afterwards because I thought it would be better to have like a proper hi-hat from a drum machine. And a lot of the time it didn't sound as snappy or as sharp or as clear. So then in the end I used the laptop hi-hat, and I don't know what's best. Why should it matter? Like I saw.
Yeah, you might think that when you're producing music like that, you're working in your head. You're working like with placeholders. You think, I'll just replace it. But it's funny how sound works sometimes, because you put something together, and once something sounds familiar to you in that context, it's often very hard to swap it out against another sound. Because it changes the whole overall vibe, or the overall not really harmonics, but the overall relationships between the sounds. It's funny how that works sometimes.
Totally. Yeah, you can't just swap a sound in theory for something else, because you'll completely change the mix, and then you have to kind of relearn the mix and get your ears comfortable to it again. It's like when you're married to something, even if it's not the best you could do or the best sound, it's in there, so then you maybe just keep it. Yeah, definitely kind of struggle with that for a long time, but these days feel a bit more happy just to leave things in and let them be ugly,
Right. So Victoria's, do you when you work with mostly the computer, do you have like your own drum kits prepared, or your own loop banks, or stuff that you've recorded previously, or do you make everything from scratch?
It depends. Like now I'm in this phase where I want to just do everything from scratch, and then I start with the drums, and then if I like that, like several tracks can come up from that idea. So yeah, it depends. Sometimes in one same day I come up with different like drum lines, and then I come back to them after with different melodies, and so from each idea like 4 or 5 can branch out.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if I discover some sounds that I really like, I put them together and I use that kit all month because I'm obsessed with that. So it depends on my mood, and it depends on I don't know, the time, the day. But about what Ed was saying about these sounds that you put together, I think sometimes something can get very technical because you know how to EQ something or what frequency should be there. And sometimes I think we can encounter combinations that we think that they don't make sense, but they elicit some kind of emotion. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
like technically it wouldn't make sense, but then you feel something, so you want to leave it there. So in the end, I think also that happens with the process. Like it's all about, it's very emotional, and what what kind of feelings or vibes something elicits, and if it works, it works. At least in the moment you think it works and you're having fun in the creative part, and then you can get, more like strict. So
Mm.
usually I would start like more in a playful, not thinking too much about every rule, but then the next day I go back to the stuff and then I think everything is just wrong. So then I try to, say, okay, what can be used and what can not, and then so I work more heavily in the melodic part of the ideas. I also, this, what happens to it also happens to me all the time. Like I try to do this very, like more raw and dry stuff, but I always end up adding melodies. So I'm just accepting and assuming that that's gonna happen, and then maybe,
Yeah,
you know,
just
it
accept
always,
it.
yeah.
I think that's why I really like both of you, or Victoria and Ariel's music so much, because there's that melodic element and the funk element, and there's a lot of like swing and bass lines, and it's refreshing because I search for that. To me, it's like a US or American sound, both north and south combined. So it's pretty awesome.
Yes, it's
There's a question for
Ah,
you
okay.
for Victoria, I guess. Do you wanna answer that?
Okay, the work you mean like DJ work or production work? I can.
yeah. Talk a bit
Yeah,
about both,
talk
maybe.
about the scene there in. Um,
Okay. Let me see. For me, I I started doing this when I was like 17 or 18. Just exploring sounds. I started with Fruity Loops, and I never really had like a super proper music education, but it was more intuitive for me. Then after that, I found out about Ableton Live, so I started messing with the software, and from there I started, learning more and meeting people who were like mentors for me. I met Ariel. I mean, I mean, the scene here is kind of new. It's very, which makes it very fresh. Right now, there are so many talented people here making music, but yeah, it didn't start like so long ago before I started. So then, I I met I met Ariel. I met Cosmo, Octavio. They are very well-known
That's
producers here.
the other
Yes,
guys from the Lopez label, right? The
yes,
LPZ Lopez label.
yes. So at the same time that I was, exploring like the music making, I also started DJing. Um, and yeah, I really don't remember the exact order of things, but then the DJ work got more heavy, and I started traveling. So the music production part I put on hold, and then finally I was able to, carry on with both. The thing with the scene here is that it's very young. We we DJs and producers also have to be, the club owners and the label owners and the promoters to make the scene, to help the scene grow. So it's like a collective, work all the time, which is fun and which makes our group of people be more together for this ideal. So this is how I met the guys, and there were other clubs going on before when I started. So all of these things were very inspirational for me, and yeah, then I just continued with that. I don't know if I was very organized in answering the question. I'm sorry.
No, for sure.
no, it's great. Did you get in touch with this music through going to events, or did you find the music by listening to, I don't know, records? What was your first contact with the music?
Just listening to the more commercial stuff, probably like on the radio, and then
Mm.
um, it was such a long time ago. Yeah, I was very young. I was listening to these things and I wanted to learn more, so I started going to like certain parties where with the fake IDs and stuff to try to understand to try to understand where this music came from, because the access I had with it was like the radio. We don't even have like record stores here, So I was in school, and I started going to parties. Then I started buying music on the internet, and that's how I was like, okay, how is this made? Where these where do these sounds come from? So that's more or less how I started. Like the curiosity helped me go deeper and meet people who would give me the key to this world that I didn't know before.
I think it's a very familiar thing you're saying, like the like you wonder how is this made. That's actually how it started for me too. I grew up like listening to sort of
house
like
music.
Ariel attempting to come through, but it's still very choppy.
Gonna be a good sample there. A nice glitched out house music. We're gonna use it.
I was gonna say, that back in the day there wasn't that much information for me either. It's comparable to your situation. The only places where I could get the music that I was intrigued by was by listening to radio shows, like pirate radio shows, and going to record shops and going through the import sections and stuff like that, and I was always like, how the hell is this made, until I found out it was electronic instruments. And back in the day you could buy these this hardware stuff for very cheap, and I just started with that, but it was always the obsession and fascination with the sounds. How is this done?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Still think that today sometimes. I mean, now it's maybe the puzzle is a little less broad, or like the labyrinth is a bit simpler to get to the middle. But I still listen to people's music and think like, whoa, how the hell did you? Make that?
And you know what? You know what? If you ask people, that's something that happens a lot. And when I talk to friends or colleagues, and I say, "Oh, damn, that's such a badass sound. How did you do that?" And most of the time, it's like, I don't know. I think I was fooling around with synth X, or I don't need. Sometimes they don't even remember what they used, but somehow they got there anyway. And that's also a fascinating thing about the process of making music. You're often just going by intuition, just doing something until you hit something that is talking to you, or that is ticking your box, or whatever. And then that's the thing you go by, and you don't really remember exactly what was involved in the process to get there, which I think is a very fascinating thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you often forget where sounds come from, or like how you could never recreate it often. Like there's some maybe some sessions I've done on a Juno 106 from years ago, and I still keep going back to them because I can't recreate it now. And like it's just also, it's a mood. It's cool what you said, Victoria, about how you approach a track, like, or how you organize yourself, because some days you're not really in the mood for getting serious into like finishing a track. You just want to make some noise, you just want to make some sounds. So I do that too. I just like come in and record a drone or some textures for a bit, and then just put it away, and then you can always come back to it later. And sometimes I can't even remember how I did that, but it doesn't matter, because then you've got it, haven't you? And then it's there.
Exactly.
Interesting.
I think that the greatest thing about this is that it's never ending. Like it doesn't have a limit. Like you don't even know how you got. Sometimes you don't even know how you got to your own idea. You understand? And that's so much fun for me.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and like you said, Ed, if you're not necessarily in the mood to make something finished, but are just fooling around and experimenting with sound. It's a really great way to overcome. I wouldn't call it writer's block, but sort of like the lack of motivation to get to the end of it,
Definitely, yeah.
to finish something. It's a great way to not get stuck, just to sort of focus your attention to to making sounds, or just finding out the range of some synth or some plugin, to see how far you can push it.
Exactly.
Um,
Learn the instruments, right?
Yeah, so that's a question I'm always asking most people. Is there, what do you do when you get stuck? What do you do when you, don't feel it? Strategies? Do you have any strategies?
The famous oblique strategies.
Oh yeah, the Eno ones. I ran into. There's an Instagram account now which is called the Oblique Strategies, and they post
cool.
one of the cards every, I don't know, once every while they post a new card.
Nice.
So. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe explain to people what it is, because
Well,
I don't think everybody knows what it is.
For sure. I mean, I don't use them personally, but I'm aware of how useful they can be, so I should use them. But when I studied at uni, I studied graphic design, and I had a great tutor at London at the LCC, which is the London College of Communication. His name was Biggles, and he was like pretty eccentric, and he was really into all that stuff. And he brought this set of cards in for us once, and showed us. And it's like a set of 50 cards, and each card has like one suggestion for something to do to help you if you get stuck. So one might be take away one element, or go make a cup of tea, or this kind of thing is cool. It's like pretty out of the box. It's not specific in any way, so you can apply it to any creative process. But yeah, I mean, I definitely like taking breaks, cooking some food in the kitchen, or like going for a walk. These are the obvious ones, I guess, but it does help. I find myself only able to concentrate properly for a couple of hours on music these days, and then after that I'm just like, I don't know if it's good or not anymore, or I can't hear properly somehow anymore. So yeah, taking a break. And like once we had our daughter, I started to come to the studio for like 4-hour segments, because that was pretty much as I could get away with, like in between naps and everything else, and it really worked well. Like 4 hours and then have a break, maximum 4 hours, I would say. What about you, Victoria?
I usually like to go for a walk, and I think for me that's that's a big part of production, because sometimes I get stuck and I get frustrated, and then during the walk I start to think about what I was doing, and then I come back and just have a cup of tea or something, and then I say, okay, I can sometimes I finish the track and then I still think it's shit, but then maybe I can use the drums, or I can use the melody. Then the next day, I always go back to the stuff I don't like, because I think sometimes something can be, drawn from that for a different purpose, maybe, or for a different track.
We're always learning with every part. That everything you make, you're learning, right? And it's like an exercise at the least. Yeah.
And then sometimes if I like one segment, I try to, or like one melodic phrase or sequence, loop or something, I try to like layer it with the same one, but with a different distortion or different texture of the same one, and see if that maybe brings me to a new idea on how to continue with the same track. Yeah. Or maybe that's what was missing, just like a background, distorted atmosphere.
Definitely, that I find that's missing in a lot of things. Like I love some background stuff, or like some tape hiss, or some sort of like swelling delay element or something. I understand why people don't put that in their music as well, because it's always nice to have a like loud and clear, dry club track. I don't know, Joachim, maybe you can share some wisdom on this, because like I listen to 90s techno tracks a lot, and there's very little reverb on them. Sometimes there's a lot, right? Like a Fuse record, it's like really booming plate or something, which sounds killer. But on the other hand, there's a lot of producers that didn't use any reverb. Everything was super dry, and those are the tracks that often really cut through in the club, don't they? And like, how do you hold yourself back from using too many effects? That's
Oh,
tricky
the
one.
answer is, I think the answer is simple. That's because, uh, you know, most people who made music in the early '90s, they even didn't own any effects, or maybe just one unit or something. So that's, I think, we're talking about if you're talking about the old +8 sound, you know.
Yeah,
Um, I think most of the stuff was just one drum machine, one synth, and one reverb unit. And then of course, if you want to use that, if you have that one reverb unit on your desk, you can choose to use the auxiliary to send your sound
yeah,
to it or not. You know, it's like pretty binary.
yeah.
And if that's why some of these records are drowned in reverb, because they just use one box
Mm,
for everything, and just use the reverb or delay or whatever on all the channels at the same time, in various different intensities.
yeah.
But you're right. I mean, the thing is with the limitless amount of options these days, it's very, very tempting to to just put effect on everything, just have different reverbs or delays or whatever effect going on every sound that's going on.
Yeah.
But for those of us who have been playing live, or who've DJ'd, or have been experienced with hearing music in a club environment, you realize that the more dry your track sounds, the better it's cutting through usually, so you don't actually need it. You feel like you need to dress up your stuff in the studio way more than if you would just play the sort of the bare bones version out in a big
Totally.
club. I mean, the best example, I keep repeating this, but it's the best example is just a mono out on a 909 straight to a PA. It's fucking killer, man. It's just
Massive.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all you need. It sounds punchy, and it's got all the frequencies in the spectrum you need to have a fat sound in a club. Same is true for most other drum machines, but that's the obvious example, I guess.
Mm.
But yeah, there's only so much you can do with that dry sound, and it's always recognizable. So if you're producing something, you want to give your own kind of vibe to it, so you start manipulating it in such a way that it sounds more as your own track, I guess.
Yeah, and it's
that's where the
inspiring
processing
then,
comes
isn't it?
in. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, it's like inspiring then to. I always add a bit of reverb for sure because like I love feeling it a bit, and then you maybe don't go crazy with it and overdo it. But then, as you said, some of those early tracks that did obviously just use one reverb unit maybe, and then send every sound to it in different degrees. Like
Yeah.
also, it sounds killer to me. I love that kind of sound. Like, then you can't kind of you can't escape it, but it's really big, isn't it? Especially if it's very stereo, very wide. And
Yeah, but
yeah,
you don't really need it to get to get a really good sounding club record. You can sort of zoom in on details like micro tuning things. Like tuning in a sense of like getting out like very, very narrow frequencies that annoy you when you're in the studio. But those things are hardly ever noticeable when you play a track on a big system. So it makes, I mean, the best thing you can do is probably focus on the flow of a record, and the events that happen during, in the record, like emotion, where do things happen, how is it structured, those are the things that are more, I think, more important to get right, rather than be
definitely.
completely anal about the sound and stacking plugins on plugins, just to make the tiniest details, and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
very small differences. Um, anyway, but it's it's an approach. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's really interesting because it can be a real trap, and yeah, as you say, in the end, a lot of the time, the only person that hears that minute change is yourself, and especially in a club or in a loud sound system, you wouldn't hear these minute changes at all, really.
Mhm.
So I guess it's about being brave, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to
Having,
let go at some point. Yeah,
yeah,
and then decide that's it. It's finished. I think maybe this is an interesting one from S90210H. What's your smallest viable party setup for playing live? I guess um, who of us have done live sets or like completely hardware based live sets? Have you, Ed?
yeah. I've done a few. I've done a lot of live sets over the years, but mainly up until 2 years ago was always based around Ableton, and then I would like chain up a drum machine and maybe one other synth like an analog four. But yeah, it was pretty much like a lot of pre-preparation in Ableton, and then at some point, I don't play a lot of live sets, but at some point I wanted to get out of that and just be a bit more free. So then I moved over to an analog four, a TR8S, which I had loaded up a lot of samples and like one shots and hits and kits from my tracks into, so it was still a bit prepared, but I could be a bit more spontaneous. And then various other small pieces of gear, like a couple of effects pedals and a Dreadbox Erebus mono synth, which I really liked. It's fun for small things really. So yeah, it could be pretty compact. I found that I liked to have two drum machines, so I often brought the old Korg Electribe ESX1, I believe, the red one, or the old TR8. So I'd have like the TR8 and the TR8S, and they work pretty nicely together. And it's nice to just be able to like whack in some extra rides or extra percussion on the additional drum machine in a live situation. Is fun, but it's all taking up space and getting in a dark room. It's on the edge of being too much stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I think the size is only a thing that is that matters in terms of traveling with it. I mean the you want something that is sort of portable, I guess. But what I think is most important when you think about putting together a live setup is that it's flexible enough to be so you can cover a really wide range of sound. You are basically free enough to improvise and to really act in the moment and to adapt yourself to every possible corner or fringe of what you really want to play. So you should be really flexible and really hands-on and intuitive. So it's the range should be big, but the size should be small. You should be able to control everything with one head and two hands. If you have too many things going on at the same time, you start to be more you start to lose oversight, and you basically spend more time kind of controlling everything and thinking about where's what, and you kind of lose the immediacy of your setup. So I think immediacy and control is very important, but the range of what you can do should be large enough, so it's you should be very flexible, but it should still be very simple and controllable. That's I think that's
hard,
the
isn't
two.
it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's possible. I mean, if you, like you said, things like, these groovebook type things like TR8S or the Electron stuff and stuff like that, and maybe a small mixer, that's probably,
exactly.
and a monosynth or something like that.
Yeah, I always I pretty much straight away as I started playing live, I always would use a Alan Heath DJ mixer to play live from, and I know that there's varying opinion about that, but like I really liked it that I was already super familiar with the mixer, and it was in the center of the live setup, and it was like the go-to instrument in a way, because you've got like 4 channels and two sends, so it's you have to keep it simple, and it's muscle memory then, so you don't need to look at it too much. If you're familiar with DJing a lot, then it's cool. You can make some really nice sort of like subtle additions to the live set and balance things easily. And whenever I tried to use like a proper stage mixer, it didn't work out for me. It was too many options. So yeah, you're right. You have to like really narrow it down and practice, I guess. Practice with that setup as much as possible and until you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean the people who do use those live mixers or like 16 or 24 channel desks, they usually play more like dub style, you know. So they have
Yeah.
like all the channels playing at the same time, like maybe in a one big loop or like a long arrangement, and then just take stuff out and or just
Mute
have
stuff.
a few channels, mute stuff and have some channels going on at the same time, and by that basically rearrange the track, you know, dub style.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love
It
seeing
is really
that.
cool. Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember seeing Daniel Bell playing at Berghain, and he had such a big setup that he required like a couple of the riders or risers or whatever you call them. So he was like walking back and forth between. He was like, "There's the hat," and then I'm going over here to do something else. But it was really cool because like you could really see that he was using the space and not being afraid. That's another thing. If you're playing live and you're restrained to a really small little corner in the tiny little booth, and then you're kind of like, it's a bit nerve-wracking. So it's nice to use the space if you have it. But yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. It was fun to see it though. It's like, you know, that it's the drama of that. Also Mr. G, when he plays live, he uses an MPC, but he uses the mixer, as you say, in that dub style, and it's like it's all about that perfectly executed unmute of like a couple of channels at the same time, so suddenly the track springs to life, and then it's super satisfying as a dancer or like to be in the crowd and watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done both, you know. I've done the 16 or 24 channel desk style sets, but also the smaller setups with DJ mixers. And you know, these days I tend to do that because it's, you know, more easy. It's easier to set up, and it's like you said, you're familiar with the DJ mixer anyway, and they are made as performance tools, really, you know. So they're very they keep the setup focused, basically, you know. There's not too much going on, and still enough to be able to improvise and do things on the fly. What about you, Victoria? Have you played live or?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm
Is it
planning
on
to
your
soon.
list? Is it on your to-do
Yes,
list?
of course.
Have you thought about how you want to do that?
I have no idea yet, but I'm
Right.
planning it slowly in my head. Yeah, let's see if it happens this year, maybe.
Okay, cool. And when you are in the studio, is it all the stuff that you do? Is it like you explained before, kind of the way you work? But since you also have some hardware, do you do like jam style recordings as well? Like
Yes, sometimes. Sorry, just finish your question.
no, yeah, that's the question. So that is already like sort of almost playing live. If you do studio sessions which are kind of repeating loops and then just adding things and playing things over top, that is sort of playing live, you know. It's like
Exactly, yes. That's
yeah.
how I record the melodies usually, because I need to be, listening in loop to everything that's happening. So, layering stuff. But I'm not sure what I would. I'm still not sure, because I would like to keep it simple. If when I arrive to the live,
Mm-hmm.
when I do that. So we'll see. But yes, it's a very physical process, which I like.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
interesting what you said, Joachim, about if you use that just the change from a stage mixer or like a big desk to a DJ mixer changes the whole style of the show, probably. So if you're an experienced DJ, which I know you are, Victoria, then like maybe you can start by just limiting yourself to using a DJ mixer.
A DJ
and
mixer, yes.
a couple of different machines or Ableton. And I mean, I think Ableton and a drum machine, I've seen amazing live sets just with that setup. If you have everything planned out well, and like you said as well, so you can go in loads of different directions. That's the beauty of a laptop, is that you can really, if it's not working out, you can just quickly jump to something new. And
it has to be versatile enough.
Yeah. It's really scary to do it without a laptop, and then kind of know that you're limited to this set sort of few directions.
On the other hand, if you play live, there should be a risky element to it, I mean, I agree when you say you have to kind of have your head around the arsenal that you are bringing, but to plan everything too much is you run the risk to kind of make it boring, if you know in advance too much about what you're going to do, you're not really kind of pushing yourself, and it tends to sound a little bit safe, if you know what I mean.
Too rehearsed.
As whereas you introduce some elements that can go anyway, that can go like any direction, and can also go wrong, then you introduce an element which makes it more challenging, and therefore more interesting for yourself, and I guess also for the crowd, because people do notice when you are in dangerous territory and try to work yourself out of a scary situation, and those are often the most interesting moments. There should be always an element of unexpectedness or danger to a live set, I think.
Yeah. DJ sets too. I mean, I love it when you hear a DJ like almost slip out, but then manages to capture it. That's the best moment for me, when they rescue it.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Dave Clark play live at Fabric, and he had something going, and it was a killer live set, I think it was about 2002 or 2003, and there was something that wasn't in sync, and then a few people started to notice, and we were like, me and my mates were like, that's falling out, that thing. And then he was like, whoop, and I think he even had one CDJ on stage that he used for some samples and stuff, and then it all finally fell back together, and people just cheered. It was so cool. It's all about that tension, isn't it? So nice. I like to hear it in recordings of DJ sets, that it adds that realism and that human aspect. It's not completely perfect.
Don't you think so, Victoria, that even when you play a DJ set, there should be something that is dangerous or unexpected? Put yourself in a position where you have to kind of find your way out of a potential failure or something, right? That is something that kind of contributes to the experience, I guess. What do you think?
I think it always should happen, because that's what makes it unique, and it's I mean, Ed just brought an example of a live set because that happened. I mean, it makes it like visceral. Yeah, he's bringing it up because it makes you feel something, like you don't know what's happening, but then everything is organized again, but then anything can happen. I think it's impossible to know, like when you enter a room and you start playing, what's so much fun about it is that the energy leads you towards what you're going to do next. So it's this constant decision-making process over and over every second. Like you're making decisions all the time according to what's happening. So it's fun, and it's at the same time an amazing exercise for the brain, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's got to be a challenge, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you also notice if there's a split second where you stop concentrating during a long set, for example, then and your mind just floats away for a second, then you're like, oh shit, I completely lost track of what's going on here. It is mentally demanding, actually. I think, like, especially if you're playing techno, it can get quite intense that you have to really focus on what's going on, you know, with your setup. And I've definitely had moments where I feel like completely lost the flow or lost track, and then it's like, shit, how do I rescue myself now? I'm sure the crowd noticed that as well, and that's cool. It's all part of the tension and the fun of the party, isn't it?
Yeah. So when you're playing, do you feel you're always in control, or do you think a lot, or is it mostly intuition? Because when I play, I usually I don't see anything around me anymore, and I'm just in the zone and doing everything on intuition. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think at all, to be honest. I just
So
I just
nice.
let it happen.
Yeah.
How, is it? Do you recognize that as something that happens to you as well,
What do you think,
Victoria?
Victoria?
Maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I'm thinking. I mean, it's definitely most of the time intuition, more percentage of intuition, but it depends. Sometimes, like if someone has to film you and you only have 1 hour to express what you want to say, I think I get a little bit more rational about it.
I'm like that
Because
too. I don't think when I'm playing. I don't think. I just like.
Yeah, Ariel is back.
but then yes, if you're in front of a crowd, I mean, I think you just get lost in the thing, and mostly in the energy that's surrounding the whole the whole set. Yes.
Yeah, it's like if you're really having fun and everything's working well, you kind of forget, as you say, about everything else. There can be some. Yeah. It's another soundbite, another good sample.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something you can probably only get when you have the opportunity to play for crowds, right? Because I mean, I get asked a lot, you know, what can you teach me DJing, or can you explain how it works? You know, yeah, of course I can explain it technically, but what actually happens when you perform? You know, what happens between the the energy of the room and the crowd and what people feel and what you feel. It's something you cannot really easily explain to people. You know what I mean? It's like it is something you have to experience. Really, it's something that's also something you can't really teach anybody. I think that's something you have to experience yourself.
Feel. When people ask me to teach them, I mean, I say the same. I mean, at least start by going to, all the parties that you can, because I don't know, stand close to the DJ, look at their hands, feel the vibe. Is the closest you can get to the experience, and then after the technical stuff, you're gonna have to be standing there, because if not, like the lesson is never complete.
Yeah.
That like crowd interaction aspect used to terrify me when I was younger, and then it's like this inner battle because you're trying to work and concentrate on mixing records, but then you're not really interacting with what's going on around you, as in the crowd, and they know that you're nervous, and then it's a downward spiral from there, I think. So it's like it took me a long time to feel comfortable in front of people and to feel relaxed, and then the best nights or the best parties are when you feel 100% free and relaxed and not self-aware. So what you said, Joachim, sounds amazing, because it's like meditation, isn't it? When you're playing, it's just like
It's very
total
very
freeness.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is very it's like a meditative state. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to be lucky with circumstances, like you said. If you're there are nights when you find yourself in a space and with a crowd where you don't really get the energy that you thrive on. Like you have to work harder to get it where you want. But I think that's where routine kicks in. You know, that's where you use your experience to kind of change, bend the vibe into something you can work with. You know, and that is just basically work. But you can get there in like half an hour or maybe an hour if you have more time. After that, you know, you can kind of arrange the energy in such a way that you finally get it to a point where you can move freely. But sometimes that work is required, and other times you can basically zone right out from the very start. You know, that's something you have to get lucky with. You know, that's
nice.
not always that's not always there. You know, but I mean, it's something you feel instantly. You know, something you arrive somewhere and you can just feel and see, okay, you know, whatever I'm gonna do, no matter what I do, it's gonna go down really, really well because I just feel this room, you know.
What are the variables?
Those are the best ones. But and if you don't find that, it might require some work. But eventually, if you're experienced enough, you'll get there. You know, you might have to push it a bit, but. The end goal, of course, is to always get there, and very often it happens. But it requires various degrees of effort, you know, sometimes. But the best nights are the ones where everything just goes like this, and you can just disappear and sort of melt together with everything that's going on, and you know, be part of the energy and feel it. You know, that's
evaporate.
Yeah, exactly.
What are the variables then for everyone? Like, what are the bare minimum things that have to be right for you to relax and to kind of sink into that comfort zone feeling where you're just like, okay, I can do whatever I want now. Like, obviously the sound system, but I don't know. What do you think?
You know, equipment in optimal conditions. And of course the vibe. I mean, if you have that, it's fine. I can not. Yeah, I think that's a minimum.
Do you have to know the club or the venue? Do you think you have to have played there before?
No, I've played in places that, you know, for the first time, and some of them were like, for me, the best experiences.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, somebody asked before what to especially to you and Ariel, if there is a difference in your mind between playing for South American audiences and European audiences. Is there a difference? Do you think there's a difference? Because now we are talking about really abstract things, you know, like feeling okay in a room and getting the vibe. And I can imagine that is something universal that is not necessarily tied to a location. Or do you feel there is a difference between playing in South America and elsewhere in the world? Or Europe, to be specific?
I'm thinking, in the people's vibes, you mean? I think it depends on, you know,
I don't know, really
the
crowd.
chemistry
It's
that.
not different between like Europe or something.
Keep going, Ariel.
I don't know. For sure, the time in Europe and the people, it's way more fun because like everyone's naked and shit. It's like super fun. And here the crowd is, yeah. The people are more like teenagers, so
yeah, it's a very new scene.
You have to evolve a little bit more for me. To get to that point.
The scene is newer, yes,
like,
but I think. Sorry, go ahead. But
is Lopez a real person? Yeah, actually. It reminds me a little bit of this. Can you remember this old video by Art of Noise, Max Headroom, Paranomia? It looks
go,
a little
Victoria.
bit like...
I think you got better connection, and we can
And no, what I was gonna say is that I don't know if the difference between South America and Europe, but like playing in Paraguay, of course, it's I mean it's home, so that's always gonna be different because you feel that the people know you in a certain
Mm.
way because you're always playing here. So when I play in Europe, for instance, um, this is gonna sound kind of cheesy, but I mean I always remember like the people who always go here to dance because if it weren't for them, we wouldn't have this constant, exposure to this. And like, you go somewhere else and people are super receptive, and you're like, oh my God, like in my own hometown, I have this opportunity to just go and play every weekend, and people are there. And that's for me. If I would make a difference, is that like playing here? It's playing home is always that is
Mm.
special because of that. Yeah.
Well, you say. I mean, Paraguay, the scene is new, but isn't the scene always new in a sense? Because it's only a certain category, age category, mostly. Like the majority of the people are people who are in their sort of clubbing age, you know what I mean? So even though the scene is a lot older in Europe, the generation that is actually going to these events is still relatively new, I would say. Although maybe the difference I would say is that there is a lot more saturation here. You know, in Europe there are way more clubs, and even if you're in a small town, there's like in every big city in driving distance there are many clubs. You know, so there's a lot more choice and there's a lot more people touring here. Um, like so there people have way more opportunities to see artists in clubs close to where they live, and so there's I wouldn't say they're more educated about it, but they have more options, I guess. There are more options to see all sort of the touring artists around. um, I
Yeah, what,
think.
what I meant with new is that, like, I don't know, 15 years ago we went, like, people made electronic music parties because there were no clubs here, you know. So I like the club culture and this everything that surrounds it is kind of new in a way. But yes, regarding the people who go, it's always going to be, rotating,
Yeah,
which is a good thing, yes.
yeah.
But at what
But
point do you feel old? But yeah, it's
I don't
true.
know. Is that your experience as well, Ed, by playing in different parts of the world? Um,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is. You do notice differences. It can often be more subtle differences rather than like. I mean, I would say playing in Europe now, like Central Europe, like in Germany or Holland or Spain or Italy, I think we've got quite used to the crowds being fairly vocal, and kind of as a DJ, like hoping for that the crowd is going to be like relaxed and they allow themselves to let loose and shout and whoop it up, and that can make you as a DJ feel kind of relaxed as well, and that you're doing a good job. And then in some other countries, you maybe experience that the crowd is a little bit more kind of a little bit more withheld or like a bit more sensitive and not so outwardly confident. That can be interesting. How you then like where does the night go then when you realize like, okay, the crowd's never going to cheer unless I really do something crazy. So maybe if you get one cheer out of them at the end of the set, then it's like you did your job. I remember playing in Japan for the first time and thinking like, oh my god, what am I doing wrong? Like it didn't. No one. Everyone was very focused on the sound, I guess, and they weren't really being vocal about the music. But then afterwards, people really clapped and like seemed really really happy. So I was like, oh okay, maybe it was all right after all. Uh, it's a weird one, isn't it?
Hmm.
But I think that like I feel like if you just do a good job technically, and you can come away feeling happy with what the music you played, then that's okay. But it's a whole nother level when you get this like crowd reaction as well. So
mhm.
depends whether you choose to play to that or not. Like, do you? Is that what you're
Exactly.
going for?
Yeah.
Or,
Exactly? Well, because is it do you really feel it's necessary, or do you actually look for those reactions, or do you pace yourself in your own pace, basically?
Yeah.
I mean, that's once you know where the button is, it's very tempting to all the to press it all the time.
The
But does
detonator.
it but does it make your set better? If you have like a cheer every 10 minutes, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then you have to keep them cheering as well if you
Yeah.
choose to go that.
It's addictive, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and just completely, as over the years, I would imagine it's completely shaped and divided the scene into all these different genres and different modes. Like, I love it when a DJ is not going for the cheers and is more like heads down, focused, and really technical. And, I like that style of techno especially. So I think it's okay to do that. Super valid. And it's art in the end, at the end of the day. I mean, I don't think. There's a lot of DJs out there that aren't interested in that at all. I think that's cool.
Mm.
It's tricky though. It's a tricky one because you want to come away feeling like, people had a good time.
I think it's a different kind of collaboration. Like, it's a different kind of collaboration between the people who are dancing and the DJ. Like, if it's more like heads down concentrating, something comes out in one way, and then in the other, if it's the other way around, maybe you have more interaction. So maybe,
Yeah,
yeah, you get like a different vibe in the set, or different kind of you take other types of risks maybe. So it's just like a different texture of the of the way you present something.
yeah.
Mm.
It's making
Yeah,
me miss DJing.
I think, yeah, exactly. We're talking about DJing now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just think personally, I try to never underestimate a crowd. I mean, people are there uh, to have an experience, basically. So the experience can be very multidimensional. It's the interaction with the people they meet on the dance floor. It's the whole experience of going to a club. The traveling
yeah,
to the club, the crazy people you meet at the wardrobe, meeting people, chatting to people on the toilet, all that stuff is part of the clubbing experience. Going to the bar, looking for the toilets, whatever.
yeah,
And that's all part of it. And you know, basically as a performer or DJ, you are only one small piece in that whole experience. It's you're basically providing a backdrop and a background. Sometimes you can be more upfront and really sort of address them directly, but other times you can sort of hold back a little bit more and let all the stuff that is happening in the room just play out by itself. Just give people a bit more space, and the people who do the lights or the visuals a chance to be in the forefront and stuff like that. I think that whole interaction, the whole club dynamics is something you can play with as a DJ. You don't always have to be the loudest and the one dominating the whole experience.
yeah,
If you leave room for all these other elements to kind of have their own development in their own space, you get a more harmonic vibe, I think. And then you can pick your moments where you want to really force the energy down and just to be there. And other times you can be more quiet, or not in level, but just less prominent. There's
yeah.
a lot of energy to play with, when on a night. So
Totally, especially over a long set. And I guess the temptation is a lot of the time to go for the jugular, because there is that competition, especially if you're on a lineup with a lot of other DJs. You want to be heard, and I think it takes a long time to get comfortable with maybe holding back a little bit. It's really, I can really imagine, Joachim, that's something that you have to learn over your entire career, it's like I can't say that I've maybe got there yet. I feel like I still struggle with that. In sequencing a set, it can get really mind-boggling.
Mm. Well, I mean, you have to be lucky to find yourself in a place where you can actually identify all these different dynamics. But once you found them out, once you do know they're there, you can play with them,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is really playing with energy, and I think that's the most powerful thing you can do.
Totally.
I think about what you said about not underestimating the crowd. Like if you're doing that, if you're being, into it and not like super loud or the center of attention, and you're taking the night as a whole thing, which it is, maybe if everyone's not screaming or whatever, you're not getting that, but that like the people who are paying attention closely are going to notice what you're doing and they're going to feel it. And I think if you were able to communicate in that way with at least someone who's there, I think it already makes it special.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
absolutely. I think here's an interesting one from Snow. No, Snow, yeah, Snow. What is personally your ideal set length? Who likes long sets? Who likes short sets? Victoria, do you like long or short, or both? Is there something to say for both? What do you think?
I prefer long or intermediate at least, because you can express, I feel I'm done expressing what I need when I have at least like 3 or 5 hours or more, even better. But when they're like super short, it's different. It's just, it's fun, but I always, feel like it's harder to express something in a shorter period of time.
Yeah, I can't do it. Like an hour,
Yeah.
an hour, I wouldn't even know how to do it.
I think after an hour, you're starting to you're starting like
You're
that's the
Right.
settling.
beginning.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
the second hour is the beginning. The first one
yeah,
is
yeah,
just yeah.
yeah. Yeah, one thing I learned about shorter sets, and I would say I never play shorter than 2 hours. 2 hours is the minimum. I don't see it. I don't
The
think it makes
point.
sense at all to even show up if you have only 1 hour. It's just
Yeah.
that's like a circus trick. Like being a monkey, like a dress monkey.
Yeah.
It's
But
like I'm here.
yeah. It's. I think it's terrible. I mean, for techno anyway. I can see how more sort of faster paced music can work like that. Maybe dubstep or drum and bass. Maybe I don't know.
Hmm.
But for techno, you need like you need space. You need the space in time to develop basically your set. Um, but yeah, I agree with Victoria. It's like 3-4 hours is probably the ideal set length. 5 is fine too, but anything between 3 and 5 is cool.
Yeah.
And even 3 can be over in a blip. It's crazy how fast time goes sometimes.
Hmm.
But less than 2 is I don't know. I mean, even with 2 hours, I feel I'm rushed. And one trick is that whenever I do have a 2 hour set, I start playing as if I was already playing for 2 hours. Like I just go straight in the middle of it,
Nice.
not
That's
even.
true. Yeah.
Straight in.
Start it as if it's 4 in the morning, and
How
then
do you
and
how do you actually start though, Joachim? Do you just like fade in like a peak time track, or is there still like an intro then in that case, or
yeah,
how would you do it?
usually I start with some I don't know some noise, and then I drop a kick, and then from there on it's like as if I'm already playing. It's
That's
like
cool.
it's I start with peak time basically, yeah,
Yeah.
like peak time sound, not necessarily a peak time known peak time record, but like that vibe, you know what I mean, like full on. And
Cool.
then usually I don't build up. I usually build down. Usually I start with full on, and then I sort of reduce,
Get more
and get
trippy.
yeah, yeah, that's usually the best. That yeah, especially when you have a short time to develop.
That's so
Hey,
cool.
John, showing up. Hey everyone.
Yo.
For each of you, what are your favorite kinds of moments or moods you aspire to create in a set? That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just hit it spot on because you want to eventually reach the point where you can play very minimalist, trippy shit. I think that's the sweet spot, isn't it? Like when you can, and normally that takes a long time to gain the trust of the crowd, and that they kind of relax into it with you and accept that they're like in on a journey. And that's really interesting that you would then start your shorter sets, you know, as if you had already been playing for an hour. That's a good tactic. I definitely want to reach like these kind of magical, hypnotic, transcendent moments, but you can't just you can't begin like that. You have to build that up. You have to earn
Yeah.
it, as a lot of people say,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess. But it really makes sense because, like, you know, and there's this sort of trance or hypnosis that happens to yourself as you're playing that you kind of believe it after a while, and you're like, okay, I can maybe get away with that record now, whereas in the
Mm.
beginning of your set you wouldn't do it. So for me, it would definitely be the sort of yeah, more trippy, more experimental end of the spectrum. But that's where I'm aiming for, I
And
guess.
is that because you like that sound, or do you think something in the room actually changes when you do get to that point?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's a combination because I think over time you learn that if you reach that point where it makes sense and maybe you've kind of gained people's trust, then you can really reach like a higher level of experience. That energy, like you were talking about energy earlier, the energy then gets to a really kind of magical place. It's like it's hard to describe, but I definitely can. I just have flashbacks. I'm having it a lot recently where I like just have flashbacks of very vivid moments from certain sets from certain places over the years, and it's all part of like yeah, not being able to do it right now, I guess. Um, but it's all about the lights and the size of the room and the volume or the space of that room, like how it echoes and reverberates. And I think you can kind of judge it when there's the right time to play those kind of records.
Mm.
What about you,
Yeah.
Victoria?
I think there is definitely a certain magic in when you can when you know that you can get super far from your comfort zone, and like the crowd is accompanying that, like they're like it's kind of a teamwork, but they are ready for you to just, you know, propose anything and it's gonna work. Like that moment is, I think, when you got it, you know, that you can go back and forth with whatever you want, but it's like you feel everything is exactly where it should be. This is why you
Mm.
can, you know, go a little bit out of the lines and then come
Mm.
back.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you get sometimes you think you wasted records too early? Like, you know what I mean? Like you have this, you have in your mind, okay, I'm gonna drop this one because this is the, you know, this and this kind of thing is what I can achieve by dropping it, you know, and then you drop it and you think, oh fuck no, it's too early, or
Yeah, wasted it.
yeah, you wasted the opportunity. Did you get that? Does it sound familiar?
It's been a long time since that happened to me, but yes, I mean, I remember a lot of times doing that and being like, oh, that wasn't, you know, a good move at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny. It feels somewhat weird talking about all this stuff now, to be honest,
Yes.
since we haven't been there for a while.
I
But
know.
I
It's
do
like
enjoy talking about it. I mean, it's yeah, it's so much part of our lives, I guess. But yeah, it's cool.
it's really
Um,
cool. It's really fun to talk about it. We never maybe talked about it at such length and with other people like this. I mean, you talk about it with your friends at the party or like afterwards, but yeah, now we're learning to really uh, explain to people why this means so much to us. Maybe like I've
mm,
been trying to tell my family a little bit more about this. You know, as we go further and further into lockdown, it's like trying to explain to my close family why this still means a lot to me and why I haven't just gone and got another job necessarily or something like that. And it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. I love talking about this stuff. That's cool.
It's something I also found out the last year when these things stopped happening. That it's really it's really important to a lot of people. You know, the people who go out, they don't. I mean, you would think, okay, what the hell are they doing there? You know, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, you know, maybe take some drugs or, you know, whatever, and then, you know, just stand there the whole night on a dance floor. But it is really that sort of feeling of unity and sharing the energy with a lot of other people you don't know and people you know, and just that whole experience. It is really something special, and I think it's hard to explain unless you've been there and experienced it, you know.
I think if you regularly experienced it, not having it was definitely like, I mean, it's something that is needed. You know, it's important. It's important for your health. You understand? It's last year we recorded so many live sets, like with like playing but with a camera, and you know, people starting interacting in the comments and stuff. So it was a way for like an outlet, you know, doing it the way we could. But it was strange. But I think like the crowd who's usually there, you know, was there like digitally, and it was nice to see like the community being there
that's
supporting.
nice.
Yeah.
It's definitely nice that the technology allows that. You know, imagine this would have happened like 10 years ago when there was no, you know, technology to share, you know, things with others. You know, but the main point of it all is the collective experience and the social interaction of people coming together and celebrating or enjoying a thing and being on the same wavelength or feeling the same thing, or at least feeling being part of something that is uniting them, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, there is not really a way to do that online. I mean, it's a bit of a I mean, it's really cool to play for an internet audience and having, you know, people in the comments and still have the feeling you're sharing it. But there's the actual physical interaction is makes everything complete. You know, it's all those elements together that make it that create the value in it, I think.
Totally. It's like the difference between a radio show and a party. I mean, you see, well, we're all very kind of comfortable now with this idea of streaming DJ sets, and I agree. I think it's super helpful, or like it's maybe giving us like 50% of that feeling of community back that's missing, but it's definitely not the same. It's not as powerful as being there in person. I miss it so much.
On a more positive note, though, we wouldn't have been talking if this wouldn't happen.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So you know, there's a lot. I mean, you know, especially in the creative circles, you know, people have still found ways to connect with each other. And I must say, last year, you know, it's been a big change, but made a lot of new friends, met a lot of new people. And it's in that way it's been absolutely amazing. You know, it's really it's a different experience, but a really valuable one to me. So
100%.
Yeah. Oh, Input Method has a question. Do you reckon electronic music, I guess, will reach new ways of being experienced in public outside of club environments, like, for example, art galleries? I don't know. What do you think about that? Maybe Victoria?
I mean, I think it has reached in a certain way in some parts of the world already, you know, more experimental stuff. it's still electronic, not club oriented music, but I think yes, why not?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of has to, right, at the moment,
Mm.
or we can hope for it to expand in that direction. Because, like, if we're not able to go to clubs, at least we can maybe go to an art gallery or an exhibition, and that connects the two worlds, I guess. I mean, they tried it here in Berlin, and it was pretty successful. But of course, then different events led to more lockdowns and all that kind of thing. But I'm really hopeful that by the spring that we can enjoy some kind of collective events again in some shape or form.
Well,
I
I'm actually really. I think that we all learned quite a lot about what we were actually doing and what what it meant in people's lives, and we found ways to to connect to other people different ways. And I think there's a lot of value in there, and I would even say that even when things get back to normal, that these type of connections will remain. They will be less frequent or less because there are other ways,
Right.
and again, to connect. But it's for some things it's definitely a solution. I mean, how else? I mean, you Ed and I would have been able to connect in real life, but for example, Victoria or P. Lopez, it would have been
Yeah.
maybe been years, before we would have actually met at some point, someplace, and get to know each other. So I think, there's some value in that as well. To connect with people. I mean, location is no longer relevant anymore with connecting in ways like this. So it's I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's super cool, and have to say, good on you for putting this together. It's what, 38 weeks now, or
Yeah.
38 episodes. That's serious, man. And there's been many. I've seen many examples of things like that where people have kind of done a podcast every week or relentlessly put out a radio show or mixes, and it's super cool. It's really encouraging. Really shows that there is a community and there is like some kind of weight and soul behind everything that we're involved in. Super cool.
Yeah, awesome. Let's get some people from YouTube or Twitch back into the conversation, because we've.
Yeah, I have to give a wink to Diego.
Okay.
Hey, honey.
Okay.
I think that was it.
Gestalten, how do you feel about playing short set in Border Room, for instance? Also, Ed, yeah. We that was a comment from before. Should we go into that question, or I think we've already answered that, right? Like playing in different environments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sander, can you find anything we can cover? Like Jorge Magana, do you think where you are located in the world matters when it comes to a music career?
That's cool. It's a good question.
I think what I've learned with doing these talks and also doing masterclasses, I think it does, yeah. But I think it doesn't really depends on your geographical location, but it depends on how many like-minded people you have in your immediate surroundings. If you can share your interest in or hobby or job or whatever you would call it in the field of music with other people, you getting feedback, having discussions, listening to things together, playing your music to others, that kind of stuff. I think that speeds up your development and your growth by multiple factors. It's really important to. I mean, music is something. Since ages, like since humans walk around, on the planet, that is a shared experience. Music is something you experience together, and so if you're isolated, I would say it's a hard thing to it's probably harder if you're isolated. But if you can share it, if you can connect to other people that have a similar experience or similar interest, that's probably the key thing more than your geographical location. What do you think?
I think in some places you have more immediate access to certain things. I mean, now you can go online and buy almost anything, but like I'm thinking about like when I started here, like the access to like the club scene or to buying records or that kind of stuff. Like you had to travel to be in like very close contact with that. And if you grow up surrounded by that, you have a different. I think you start in a different level because you already have a different kind of exercise in your whole environment. Whereas in places where you don't have that, it's not better or worse. It's just like you have to create those conditions for it to happen. I don't know. Like you're in Berlin, you are one. You are a DJ trying to or a producer trying to you know who else is doing that. But here is like very few people are doing that, and we have to create the scene. We have to open places that allow for people to be in contact with that culture, so they go and dance because they understand what it means to to be in contact with all of that. So the difference for me is just the way that like if you're doing this in a place where it's not already built, you become, I don't know if to say a pioneer, but your presence there means is active in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Must be a lot of work, right, to set that up. If you take the example of Asuncion, Victoria, like
Yes.
and if there were no clubs or very few and a small scene, and you wanted to build something, like you mentioned earlier, you had to be the promoter, the club owner, maybe the label owner, possibly
I mean,
a driver,
I
possibly a
think
chef. Like
exactly. I think that's the big difference. Like not the passion for it, and not you can you find a way to meet with people who have your same passion, but like if the whole ecosystem that surrounds you is not equipped with all of that, you have to make it happen. Aside from making the music and all that, so
yeah,
I think that's maybe one difference. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
Not that if you are somewhere else you don't do that also. It's just that like in some places you have to create it from scratch.
yeah, totally, big challenge.
Yeah, but I also think like what Boris here is mentioning in the comments, having to create the scene is a beautiful thing. Less rules and boundaries. That's what
It's amazing.
Boris,
Yes,
Boris says. I kind of resonates
it's
to me because, you know, I've had everything, you know, from being the only one in my city doing something and being in a scene where everything, you know, was completely had become an industry and you know with all the possibilities and you know mega productions and stuff like that, you know. And I must say there's something to say for both, you know. Things can be easier if the infrastructure is there and when all the people are pros, you know, and it's a thing that's worked out and people know what to do and there's routines for everything and companies to support everything. But it's also hell of a ride to start something new, you know, to be involved in something and grow it, you know, like from the beginning. It's
yes.
yeah.
I'm just saying that the access to information is different and the
Yeah.
way you have to implement that is different. I'm not saying it's good or bad. For me, it's amazing to be discovering stuff all the time for yourself and not just like being handed in one way. So it's for sure it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Both of the ways are beautiful. They're just different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't. I agree. There's one is not better than the other, but it's. I mean, yeah. Oh, Sebastian has a question. Is there any vision you have that could make online events more rewarding for you as performers and dancers? Online events more rewarding. I don't know.
Like if performers and dancers add up to the experience of the night. Is that...
In terms of satisfaction, right? I mean, I don't know about dancers because the only thing that is missing, obviously, is the direct connection. You know, the energy of being in the same room. That's something that is just not there. I mean, you can see people commenting, but it's a kind of like a distant call. You know, like a like you know they're there, but you don't feel it. You know, because they're on some screen somewhere in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Their presence is definitely with the ones that I've been doing. Their presence is definitely important, and it's definitely giving you the feeling that you are playing for a crowd. But it's different from, of course, being able to see people move and have the energy of bodies in front of you and stuff like that. You know, but. I do think both are rewarding in their own kind of way, you know. I mean, the stuff that we do here at Stoor, like the jams and the remote jams, are they are not designed or not made to be a substitute for a club experience. They are basically intimate studio sessions, and that's how we approach it musically as well. You know, they're not like full on. Like big in your face, big room type sets. You know, they're more like studio improvisations, and we give people a little a window into the studio to see how stuff comes together when people are interacting with, in an intimate environment, and that's a whole different setting than being on stage in front of a crowd. So it is not supposed to be the same. But it's rewarding in its own way, you know, because you're interacting with humans in the same room, but it's only 2 or 3 at a time, and you feel that there is an audience, and you know how things are when you are streaming live. There is this sort of red light. When the record button comes on, you behave differently, and you know it's immediate and it's live, and you only have one chance. So you do have a sense of immediacy and a sense of urgency to what you are doing, but in a totally different way, because you can still pace yourself differently and kind of venture off into areas where you wouldn't go when you are in front of an audience, because they wouldn't work, you know. Or they would be boring, or too lengthy, or too dubby, or too spaced out, or whatever. But I think if you look at it from what it is and what purpose it serves, they are probably equally rewarding, you know, because you get a different kind of kick out of it. It's a different way of performing and different type of interaction, but it's musically as interesting and rewarding as playing in front of an audience, in my experience anyway.
I think it could be good to see these things as new outlets of expression, like a new pillar. Like you have a radio show, you have a stream, you have like something new, and not something that is trying to replace an experience that we don't have the possibility to live right now. Like it's just a different thing that we're doing now, but not as a replacement, but like as a creative, exploring a new way to make connections.
Exactly.
To help people learn to
just the way to stay busy, just to help. At the end, it also helps you stay a bit sane.
Yes.
To keep working, keep on creating. It's super cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's funny. I don't want to bash anybody, but I mean, a lot of promoters and clubs and festival organizations in the beginning of the lockdowns, like early last year, they try to recreate this sort of festival or club setting and stream that. So you had like one person in an empty club, playing a DJ set or something like that, or a live set. And I to be honest, from the beginning, I thought they completely missed the point, because the one element that people are really going to a club for was missing, and that's the other people going to a club, you know, like the shared experience, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it you know, a club experience is not watching some guy or a woman or performer behind decks, you know. That's not the experience, you know what I mean? It's just you just don't go there and stare at them, and that's the only thing you pay attention to. You pay attention to the whole experience, like we talked about before, like the energy, the fun of, you know, moving around the club, you know, finding your spot and going to the bar, to the toilet, you know, you name it. That's all part of it, and it's the social aspect of clubbing that makes clubbing nice and interesting and worth going to, and the music is just part of it. So by pulling those two things apart and presenting one element and forget about the rest, kind of misses the point. So I think streams of, you know, people doing stuff from their bedrooms are even more interesting than
that's cool.
trying to you know, having somebody playing in an empty club or at some strange location just by themselves, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't. That's just not the point of what we do. We don't just play. We have a communication, you know. And if the communication is not there, then it's pointless. And so that's why I stayed away from this whole idea of trying that to recreate that shared experience in that way. And that's why we chose to do these more intimate studio sessions, which are valid by themselves, because it's, you know, collaborations going on in an intimate space, and we just have people watching over our shoulder, and that's it. You know, there's no attempt to make people dance, or although it can be danceable, I don't know, you know, it's fine, but that's not it's not trying to be an online rave, you know. It's a studio experience. Livingston, the one with Tokachev made him jump. Well, good. I mean, it's not forbidden, you know. It's fine, good. You know. If people want to enjoy it like that, it's fine. It's, you know. But it's all I'm saying that it's that it. I think in this context it still works, and in a context of an empty club or an empty, you know, warehouse, it kind of misses the point a bit, I think.
I think you touched on something super interesting, because, like, it's true, when the record button goes on, then you behave differently to when it's not turned on. And if you're playing live, whether it's in a club in front of people or over a stream, I mean, playing live as in DJing or indeed playing a live set, you'll perform differently, and you do capture that certain magic, I guess, when it's like in front of an audience, whether it's in front of a live audience or on a stream. And I've seen some really, really cool examples of that, of like people really pulling stuff out of the bag that probably they wouldn't have done otherwise, and it's forwarding then like everyone's creativity and giving them motivation to keep going, keep making music, keep digging for cool new music. So I think it's, there's tons of positives to it.
And it's a huge learning experience. I mean, you're creating a learning opportunity for so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, allowing a window. But yeah, I think you're right. It's really cool to see inside people's homes, or like listen to their personal record collections or stuff they wouldn't normally play in a club. And kind of go behind the scenes a little bit. That's so cool. Like, imagine if we would have had that 10 or 15 years ago, you know, seeing some of our favorite producers or musicians getting into their studios. I mean, it's really great. Like, also, without naming names, I've seen into some producer studios now this year, and I think otherwise we would have never had that chance, and that's pretty golden.
Awesome. People, we've been already talking for more than 2 hours. It's such a shame that P. Lopez connection was fucking up all the time. We'd love to have him part of the conversation, but anyway, some other time. Yeah, we'll pick his brain on some other occasion when he gets his internet connection, his wired one fixed. It was a bit of a last-minute call, though, but I mean, I enjoyed this conversation very much, but it's just a bit sad that we had to deal with the delays and stuff. Anyway, Definitely. It's fine.
made it.
Yeah, usually what we do at the end of the podcast is to give everybody a few minutes to talk about what they're doing, what we can expect from them, where they can find your music, what's maybe coming up, any remixes, any releases, any projects. Victoria, maybe you go first. Anything you want people to know about? Anything you want to promote?
Okay, I mean, we have a label called In Between with Ariel. So if anyone wants to check it out, they are more than welcome to do so. I have upcoming releases on Jujuka, which is Julia Gover's label.
Cool.
And yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome. Wicked.
Yeah, like I've been aware of the In Between label that Victoria and Ariel run, and it's super cool because they release like not only techno and house but also hip hop and some. It's quite hard to categorize sometimes some of the music that.
I guess that's why it's
you put
called In
out.
Between, right?
Actually, we started with this radio show like 3 years ago, and it was called From Here to There and Every Place in Between, because we wanted to do this, like play music on national radio, but music that's good, but you can't pinpoint exactly what everything is all the time, but everything is just part of the system which made house and techno exist. So then after that, we created the label, and we were like, okay, this name is too long, so let's just call it In Between. So yeah, that's
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some really cool
There-
music.
it's
Yeah,
a bit of hip-hop.
Sander just posted the link to the Bandcamp, so I encourage people to have a look there and see what
Thank you.
Victoria's up to. Cool, thanks, Victoria. Ed, anything you've got in the pipeline?
Yeah, there's some bits and pieces. I mean, that's why it was cool to connect tonight with Ariel and Victoria, because I've recently released some music by both of them on Counterchange, which is the label that I've been running for like 6-7 years now. And Ariel gave me an original track for the Stream State compilation that came out in February last year, and now Victoria remixed his track with a super cool, I don't know, it's really chunky, I would say, chunky banging kind of old school reinterpretation, and Ariel remixed one of my tracks, so it's a nice kind of little thing we've got going on. And yeah, and then there's going to be an album from Ariel, from P. Lopez on Counterchange, which we're working on now to put together or to finalize. And yeah, there's quite a few things planned for the label this year. I'm hoping to start getting some of that new stuff out there soon. So keep your eyes on it, I guess.
Cool. Yeah. Also, the link to Counterchange is in the comments now. So
Nice,
yeah,
thanks.
people, if you want to visit the Bandcamp, I would encourage you to do so. From my side, I think I'm gonna just keep it to two things. One is our Discord server. We've got a Discord server where all you knob twiddlers are hanging out, and we for people who don't know what Discord is, it's sort of like a live forum. It's like it's like WhatsApp group, but massive, and it's in between WhatsApp and a forum basically. So it's not static; it's in real time, and a lot of knob twiddlers are hanging out there. People who watch the show. There's people who are pros. There are people who are starting out, novice and veteran, everything mixed up, and there's a lot of exchange of information, music, and all kinds of stuff basically. It's a really lively environment. So if you like these shows and want to continue the conversation outside of the streams, then I encourage you to have a look there. There's a link in the comments right now, the Discord community. Check that out. And the other thing is, we have a Patreon page. If you like this project and want to support us, have a look there. There should be a link in the comments soon. We have several tiers. The lower ones include the monthly sound packs or sound banks and stuff, sounds that are coming here from the lab and that we make available to the people who subscribe there. And the higher tiers can actually enjoy masterclasses and stuff like that. So we have a private Knob Twiddlers Hangout as well, where you can talk to me and get your, advice on your music and get your music to the next level if that's something you're interested in. That's every every Tuesday from now on. And so yeah, have a look there. And I think other than that, what? I think from next week onwards, we do the stream an hour earlier, so we'll start at 8. But we'll announce it on the socials, so you'll see. Anyway, so yeah, again, thank you, Ed, for joining. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank
and
you.
Thank
of
you so
course,
much.
also thank you, P. Lopez, Ariel. Sorry it didn't work out with the connection, man, but we'll get you on some other time.
Thanks, Ariel.
And
Thank you.
yeah, thanks everybody for joining us and watching the stream, people on the Twitch and on YouTube, and hopefully see you in Discord sometimes, and otherwise next week for a new round with new guests. So thanks again. Have a nice evening.
Thanks for having us.
Ciao,
Thank you.
ciao. Ciao, ciao.